So, if you live in Lincoln, Nebraska, you definitely know the feeling. You pull into your driveway after a long winter, and there it is, that spiderweb of cracks that seems to get a little bigger, little deeper every single year. Well, today, we're going to break down exactly what's going on with your pavement and give you a clear, simple plan to get it fixed right.
Okay, let's start with the big question, right? Why does pavement in Lincoln seem to take such a beating? It's a problem pretty much every homeowner or business owner has to deal with. And the answer, well, it's not just about cars driving on it, it's all about the crazy weather we get.
You've got one side of the coin, summer. A pretty typical high temperature in Lincoln can easily hit 89 degrees. The sun is just baking that asphalt, causing it to heat up and expand. That right there is one half of the stress it's under.
And then you have the complete opposite. Winter lows that can drop down to around 17 degrees. I mean, that is a massive temperature swing. The same pavement that was swelling up in the summer heat is now shrinking and contracting in the freezing cold. That constant back and forth movement is just brutal on any surface.
But the real enemy, the main culprit behind all those cracks and potholes, is this thing right here, the freeze-thaw cycle. It's this relentless process that's literally tearing your pavement apart from the inside out.
So this brings us to our first big point, Lincoln's very specific climate challenge. What happens is, moisture from rain or melting snow seeps into these tiny hairline cracks. Then, overnight, it freezes. And as you know, when water freezes, it expands, acting like a wedge, forcing that crack wider. Then it thaws, more water gets in, and the whole cycle just repeats, all winter long. That is what absolutely destroys pavement here in Nebraska.
Okay, so now that we know what the problem is, what are the solutions? What can you actually do about it? Let's take a look inside a typical contractor's toolkit to understand the different services you'll hear about when you start making some calls.
Your options pretty much fall into these 5 buckets. New paving is exactly what it sounds like, a total replacement. Repair and patching is for tackling existing problems like potholes. Seal coating and crack sealing, that's your crucial preventative maintenance. Striping is mostly for commercial lots, for parking spaces and safety lines. And yeah, a lot of paving pros also do concrete work, which we're going to compare in just a minute.
I absolutely love this way of looking at it. Think of seal coating as the cheapest insurance policy you can buy for your pavement. It creates this protective shield on top. It blocks the UV rays that make asphalt brittle, it stops water from getting into those first tiny cracks, and it even protects against oil spills. Most pros will tell you to do it every 2 to 4 years, and it will seriously extend the life of your driveway.
This is probably one of the most common questions homeowners ask, and let me tell you, getting the answer right is absolutely crucial. If you try to save a little money by going too thin up front, you are basically just signing up for some very expensive repairs in just a couple of years. When it comes to asphalt, thickness equals strength, period.
This chart here lays out the standard recommendations perfectly. So for a typical family home, just cars and maybe an SUV, 2 to 3 inches of asphalt on top of a solid 6 to 8 inch gravel base is the sweet spot. But, and this is a big but, if you have a heavy work truck or an RV or you get frequent deliveries, you really need to bump that up to 4 inches. And notice that aggregate base underneath is just as important as the blacktop you see on top.
All right, let's talk about the bottom line. No project ever gets off the ground without understanding the budget, right? So, what's the real price? What should you realistically expect to pay for an asphalt project in the Lincoln area?
Here are some good ballpark figures to keep in mind. A brand new driveway is going to run you somewhere between $7 and $15 a square foot. So, for a standard 2-car driveway, that works out to somewhere between, say, $2,800 and $6,000. Now, if your foundation is still in good shape, a simple resurfacing is way cheaper. And look at seal coating. We are talking just cents per square foot for that insurance policy we mentioned. It's a no-brainer.
So why the big range in price, from $7 to $15? Well, it all comes down to these key factors. If your old driveway has to be completely torn out and hauled away, that's going to cost more. The thicker the asphalt, the higher the price. If you've got that heavy clay soil, which is pretty common around Lancaster County, you might need extra work on the base. Even how far you are from the asphalt plant and whether it's peak season or off-season can move the needle on your final quote.
Okay, this brings us to a major crossroads for any property owner. You've got 2 great but very different options for your driveway. So let's break down the head-to-head matchup, asphalt versus concrete, especially for our climate here in Lincoln.
This is really the classic trade-off, isn't it? It's all about short-term savings versus long-term durability.
Asphalt gives you that lower upfront cost, and its natural flexibility is a huge plus in Nebraska's climate where the ground shifts. But you're trading that for a shorter lifespan and the need for regular maintenance. Concrete, on the other hand, is the long-term play. You'll pay more upfront, and you have to wait longer for it to cure, but you could get decades of nearly maintenance-free use. The right choice really just depends on your budget and how long you plan on staying in your home.
So, you get the problem, you know your options, you've got a budget in mind. The very last piece of the puzzle is finding the right team to actually do the work. This is your action plan for hiring a contractor you can trust.
Please do not sign on the dotted line until you've gone through this checklist. Make sure they have proven experience with Lincoln-specific soil and climate. Confirm that they're registered and fully insured. That protects you. And always, always get multiple, detailed, written quotes. A number scribbled on a napkin is worthless. A real quote locks in the scope of work and protects you from surprise costs later. Then ask for references and finally ask about a warranty.
If you only take one single thing away from this entire explainer, please let it be this. The beautiful black asphalt you see on top is only as good as the foundation underneath that you can't see. Any contractor who rushes the prep work or skimps on the compacted gravel base is setting you up for failure no matter how good that top layer looks on day one.
So as you start talking to contractors and looking at those quotes, just keep this one question front and center in your mind. Because a driveway or a parking lot that lasts for decades isn't really about the surface you walk on. It's about starting with a solid, stable, and properly prepared foundation from the very beginning.